What if the first words you whispered to yourself each morning shaped the entire course of your day? What if the direction of your mind, from the moment your eyes open, could decide whether you drift in reaction or rise with purpose? The Stoics believed that mornings were sacred, not because the sun rises, but because the mind does. Before the noise, before the rush, before the opinions and interruptions, there's a window, a quiet window where you can choose. Will I live this day by default or by design? This episode isn't about motivation, it's about grounding. These 12 Stoic affirmations aren't magic spells, they are mental anchors. They don't promise ease, they promise strength. They don't deny suffering, they prepare you for it. Because if you can direct your mind early, you'll meet chaos with clarity. You'll stop waiting for peace and start becoming it. So before you scroll, before you check, before you let the world in, listen closely. Choose one of these truths each morning and say it not to feel good, but to be unshakable. Let's begin. 1. Today, I will not be disturbed by things outside my control. Most people wake up and immediately surrender, not to anything physical, but to everything mental. They open their eyes and check their phone, and before their feet even touch the floor, they've allowed headlines, messages, or someone's opinion to hijack their state. And that's where the day is lost, not in the evening chaos, but in the unguarded morning. Because the first choice you make isn't what to wear or what to eat. It's what to think. And if you don't claim that thought, someone or something else will. The Stoics understood this long before smartphones ever existed. Epictetus wrote, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." That's not just philosophy, it's practical, because the event by itself is neutral. The flat tire, the angry email, the rude stranger, they have no power until you give them permission to enter your peace. Today, you remind yourself, I don't owe the world a reaction. I don't have to internalize noise just because it's loud. I don't have to carry burdens just because someone else drops them at my feet. But here's the challenge. It's easy to say, I won't be disturbed, until you are. Until life pushes the exact button you swore you were immune to. That's where the real work begins. This affirmation is not a magical shield that keeps negativity away. It's a reminder to pause, to notice, to breathe, to see the trigger, but not pull it, to hear the insult, but not echo it, to observe the chaos without becoming it. You won't always succeed. Some days you'll snap, you'll get dragged in, you'll raise your voice or clench your jaw or spiral into a thought loop. But even then, even in the moment after failure, you have a second chance. You can return to this truth. Today is not over. I can return to my center. I can be disturbed and still choose peace afterward. Because peace isn't perfection. It's direction. It's not the absence of disturbance. It's the refusal to let disturbance become your identity. So when the inevitable stress hits, when traffic moves like molasses, when someone's tone stings, when you feel overlooked or misunderstood or triggered, remember, this moment is not yours unless you claim it. The anger is not yours unless you adopt it. The energy is not yours unless you absorb it. You can witness without merging. And that's not weakness, that's strength refined. Anyone can explode. The real power lies in restraint, in being so grounded in who you are that no storm can uproot you. That's Stoicism in action, not in the calm, but in the heat. Not in isolation, but in interaction. To remain undisturbed, not because the world is quiet, but because you are. This morning, you declare it, not as a mantra to chant blindly, but as a compass to live by. Today, I will not be disturbed by things outside my control, not because they won't come, but because you're ready. 2. My thoughts are mine. My reactions are mine. In a world that constantly pulls at your attention, it's easy to forget that your inner life belongs to you. People try to provoke you. Media tries to shape your perception. Algorithms try to direct your emotions. And unless you're intentional, you begin to confuse the noise outside with the voice inside. That's why this Stoic affirmation is not just a reminder, it's a reclaiming. A quiet revolution that begins in the most powerful territory, your own mind. Think about it. How often do we blame others for how we feel? We say things like, "He made me angry," or "She ruined my day." But if your state of mind can be taken so easily, was it ever truly yours to begin with? The Stoic believes otherwise. He knows that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, he has the power to choose, not react blindly, but respond wisely, not absorb, but assess. That doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means you become sovereign. You're still allowed to feel deeply, but you are not a slave to those feelings. You can notice anger rising without unleashing it. You can recognize sadness without drowning in it. You can hear criticism without letting it pierce your sense of self. Because your thoughts are your responsibility, and your reactions are your reflection. This mindset shift is especially important when things go wrong, when life doesn't cooperate. You may not control the chaos, but you do control the commentary. Will you tell yourself a story of defeat or one of adaptation? Will you spiral into why it's unfair, or will you lean into what you can learn? The Stoic doesn't escape reality. He shapes his meaning from it. And that starts with owning his inner narrative. Imagine going through a whole day with this truth firmly planted in your mind. My thoughts are mine. My reactions are mine. How would you show up differently? Maybe you'd walk away from an argument instead of fueling it. Maybe you'd hear a harsh comment and pause instead of firing back. Maybe you'd fail at something, and instead of calling yourself names, you'd simply ask, "What's next?" This isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about mastering what you feed. Because not every thought deserves your belief. Not every reaction deserves your energy. And not every mood deserves to steer the wheel of your day. So guard your mind like a fortress. When a destructive thought knocks, you don't have to open the door. When a toxic emotion demands control, you don't have to surrender the keys. Let them come. Let them pass. Let them crash like waves. But you remain the shore. Still, grounded, unmoved. And in doing so, you become powerful in the truest sense. Not loud, not aggressive, but rooted. You gain clarity, not because the world got easier, but because your mind got stronger. And that strength comes from claiming your sovereignty every single morning. Repeat it again, not just with words, but with conviction. My thoughts are mine. My reactions are mine. This is where freedom begins. 3. Let others act according to their nature. I will act according to mine. There's a quiet strength in refusing to be shaped by the actions of others. When someone wrongs you, disrespects you, or disappoints you, your instinct may be to mirror their behavior, to return coldness with silence, to match pettiness with pride, to reflect their flaws as if they're now yours to carry. But the Stoic sees that as surrender. Why would you hand over your character just because someone else abandoned theirs? This affirmation draws a line between reaction and principle. It reminds you that other people are free to lie, manipulate, gossip, blame. That's their nature, or at least their current level of development. But your response doesn't have to follow the same script. You don't have to compete in pettiness or join the dance of dysfunction. You don't have to sink to their level just because it's easier than standing firm in yours. Think of this like an internal compass. Others may wander, others may get lost in their emotions or their ego, but your direction comes from something deeper, from values, from clarity, from the commitment to live with integrity, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that's when it matters most, when it's not reciprocated, not acknowledged, not rewarded. That's when it becomes who you are. This doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. Stoicism isn't weakness, it's wise restraint. You're not letting bad behavior slide. You're refusing to let it stain you. You can set boundaries, you can walk away, You can speak up, but from clarity, not from chaos. Because you're not reacting to who they are, you're acting from who you are. And here's the deeper lesson. When you stop trying to change people, you free yourself. So much energy is wasted trying to get someone to treat you differently, see you differently, love you better. But trying to fix someone else's nature is like yelling at the wind, exhausting and entirely futile. What you can do, though, is master your own. Sharpen it, strengthen it. Let it guide you like a lighthouse in the storm of other people's dysfunction. When they provoke, you stay centered. When they betray, you remain whole. When they vanish, you continue to rise. Not because you're unaffected, but because you've chosen not to let their behavior decide your identity. That is power. Not loud, not flashy, but unshakable. This is how you make peace your standard. You no longer ask, why are they like this? Instead, you ask, who do I choose to be in the face of this? And that one question reclaims all your strength. It shifts your focus from frustration to discipline, from blame to boundary, from reactivity to responsibility. So when the world feels chaotic, when people around you seem lost in their own dysfunction, remind yourself of this simple, powerful truth. Let others act according to their nature. I will act according to mine. And let that nature be calm. Let it be clear. Let it be carved from something deeper than the need to be liked or the impulse to win. Because the person who cannot be provoked, who chooses principle over pride, becomes untouchable. Not because they're numb, but because they are guided. 4. What is essential cannot be taken from me. We live in a world that defines success by accumulation, more titles, more followers, more possessions, and with each gain, we secretly fear the loss. The day the title is stripped, the applause fades, the wealth disappears. That fear is what keeps most people anxious, desperate to hold on to things that were never truly theirs to begin with. But the Stoic sees this differently. He returns to what cannot be stolen, lost, or broken, and he finds peace there. What is essential cannot be taken from me is not just a sentence, it's a reminder of what is truly yours, not your reputation, not your bank account, not the affection of others, but your reason, your character, your discipline, your will to act with virtue even when the world doesn't reward it. That's the foundation the Stoic builds on, because it can't be shaken even when everything else is. Imagine losing everything external you rely on: the job, the status, the partner, the recognition. What remains? If your identity is tied to things, then when they go, you go with them. But if your worth is rooted in how you live, how you think, how you choose, then no loss can break you. Even in suffering, you remain whole. This truth is especially important in moments of betrayal or failure. When someone walks away or something crumbles, the question is not, why did they leave? Or, why did this happen? The question is, what remains? What part of you is still intact, untouched by circumstance, still breathing, still choosing how to move forward? Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength isn't loud. It doesn't beg for sympathy or prove its worth. It just quietly endures. Because it knows its value doesn't fluctuate with public opinion or external outcomes. You could lose your job today and still carry yourself with integrity. You could be insulted by someone you love and still choose not to respond with cruelty. You could wake up tomorrow with less money, fewer friends, or harder circumstances, and still move through the day with grace. Why? Because the core of who you are wasn't built on what can be taken. It was built on what cannot be touched. This affirmation is your shield. When life tries to strip you down, when people try to define you by your worst moments, you return to this. What is essential cannot be taken from me. They can doubt your value, but they cannot dictate it. They can question your choices, but they can't touch your reason. They can leave you, but they cannot remove the ability you have to begin again from principle. And the more you repeat this truth, the more unshakable you become. You stop chasing security in things and start finding stability in character. You stop fearing change because you know your core remains the same. You stop begging for validation because your foundation is already strong. So when life tries to knock you down, when you're tempted to measure yourself by what you have or what you've lost, take a breath. Anchor back into this truth. Say it with quiet conviction. What is essential cannot be taken from me. That's the mindset of the unbreakable. That's how you walk through a burning world without losing your center. 5. I will observe before I speak. I will pause before I act. We often think power lies in action, in being decisive, quick, assertive. But the Stoic knows the opposite is true. Real power lives in the pause, in the space between what provokes you and how you respond. In that quiet moment of observation before your words leave your mouth, before your actions leave their mark. Because once you speak, you cannot unspeak. Once you act, you cannot undo. But in the pause, everything is still possible. Modern life doesn't reward slowness, it pushes urgency. Comment now, post now, react now. But urgency is often the enemy of wisdom. The Stoic refuses to be dragged by the moment. He doesn't follow his first impulse. He stops, observes, asks himself, is this true? Is it necessary? Is it aligned with who I want to be? When someone offends you, what do? The average person retaliates. The Stoic reflects. He observes not just the other, but himself. What is this stirring in me? What story am I about to write with my words, my tone, my posture? He pauses, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Because he knows every reaction is a vote for the kind of person he's becoming. The pause isn't weakness, it's discipline. It's the recognition that silence can be a greater force than speech, that waiting can be a greater show of strength than immediate action. The pause is where clarity is born, and clarity is the birthplace of wise living. Think of the people you admire most, those who move with calm precision, who speak with weight, who don't rush into arguments or decisions. They aren't impulsive, they don't seek to win moments, they aim to master themselves. And that mastery comes from honoring the pause. This isn't just about avoiding mistakes, it's about cultivating presence. When you pause, you step back from reactivity and into intention. You begin to act from principle, not pressure. You begin to speak from truth, not ego. You begin to shape your life not by accident, but by design. It's tempting to think pausing is doing nothing, but it's not. It's doing the deepest kind of work, regulating your emotions, observing your thoughts, checking your intentions. In that stillness, you take back your authorship. You write your story rather than being written by the chaos around you. So tomorrow, when tension rises, pause. When someone provokes you, pause. When you feel the urge to snap, defend, explain, pause. And in that pause, ask, what outcome do I want to create? What kind of person do I want to be? What principle do I want to protect? Because when you live from that pause, your words gain weight, your actions gain meaning. You become less chaotic, more intentional, less reactive, more grounded, and that grounding becomes your power. Repeat it each morning, and more importantly, practice it when it's hardest. I will observe before I speak. I will pause before I act. In a world that reacts without thinking, be the one who responds with wisdom. 6. Nothing that happens today will be entirely new. I have seen it before. It's easy to believe that every hardship we face is somehow unique, that today's challenges are more intense, more personal, more complex than anything we've endured before. But the Stoic mind cuts through this illusion. It reminds us, life is a cycle, not a surprise. You have seen betrayal before. You've met disappointment before. You've faced fear before. And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still capable. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What happens to anyone can happen to you. If it's endurable by others, it is endurable by you." This is not a cold truth, it's a liberating one, because it means nothing is as overwhelming as it first appears. You're not entering foreign territory, you're walking a path that others have walked, and that you yourself have walked and survived. Think of how often we panic, not because something is unbearable, but because it feels unfamiliar. That unfamiliarity breeds fear. But when you realize that nothing is truly new, you reclaim your composure. The sting of insult, the weight of loss, the burden of a hard decision. You've carried similar weights before. And what did you do? You adjusted, you adapted, you grew stronger. The Stoic prepares for this each morning, not by predicting exact events, but by accepting the patterns of life. Someone will be rude, something won't go as planned, a moment will test your patience. When these things happen, the Stoic doesn't ask, "Why me?" He nods with quiet readiness. "Ah, this again." That phrase carries immense power, because it shifts you from victim to observer, from overwhelmed to prepared. And if you truly reflect, you'll realize this morning, affirmation isn't just a statement, it's a form of armor. It shields you from unnecessary shock. It grounds you in emotional history, because you've been disappointed before, and you found a way to love again. You've failed before, and you rebuilt. You've been misunderstood, and you didn't let it define you. So when the next disruption comes, the email that throws off your plans, the comment that cuts deeper than expected, the silence from someone you love, remember, it's not new, and that's not defeatist. It's empowering. You're not caught off guard. You're walking a road you already know how to navigate, and this time you walk it with more clarity, more strength, more wisdom. The more you internalize this, the calmer your life becomes. You stop reacting as if life owes you smoothness. You begin embracing each challenge as familiar terrain, and that familiarity breeds confidence. So as you rise each morning, whisper this not just as an idea, but as a strategy. Nothing that happens today will be entirely new. I have seen it before. It's not the storm that breaks us. It's the belief that we've never stood in the rain before. 7. I expect discomfort, and I welcome the lesson in it. Most people begin their day hoping for ease. They pray for smooth paths, agreeable faces, and favorable circumstances. But a Stoic wakes up expecting resistance, not because they're pessimistic, but because they are prepared. Discomfort, to the Stoic, is not a punishment. It's a classroom. And every moment that stings, frustrates, or unsettles is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to instruct you. Think about it. When did you grow the most? Was it when everything went your way? Or was it when something went wrong and you had to adapt, confront, and overcome? Discomfort stretches us. It challenges the lazy parts of our thinking. It forces honesty out of us, and it reveals what comfort often conceals: our weaknesses. When life is too easy, you become soft. But when life presses in, it reveals what you're made of. Discomfort is not just a test of your strength, it's the very thing that builds it. Start your day by expecting it. Expect interruptions. Expect people to disappoint you. Expect traffic. Expect a moment of anxiety, or a task that feels too big, or a conversation that feels too awkward. Not because you're inviting negativity, but because you're grounded in reality. Life is not designed to revolve around your convenience. It's full of friction, tension, uncertainty, and that's exactly where character is forged. The Stoics didn't fantasize about a life free from suffering. They prepared for it. Epictetus advised his students to rehearse adversity. Before the day began, they would say, "Today, I may be insulted. Today, I may lose something. Today, someone might lie to me." Why? So that when it happened, they wouldn't be surprised. they would be ready. And in that readiness, there's peace. Discomfort is not your enemy. What hurts you today might be shaping you for tomorrow. The painful moment you're tempted to avoid might be the very moment you need to lean into. When you welcome discomfort as a teacher, not an invader, you take your power back. You don't flinch, you listen. You don't run, you engage. You become the kind of person who can stand in the fire without falling apart. So tomorrow morning, don't just say the words, mean them. I expect discomfort, and I welcome the lesson in it. Say it with your chest, say it with your spine straight. You are not here to avoid challenge. You are here to rise through it. Because nothing meaningful is built in the absence of struggle. And the peace you're looking for, it's not on the other side of discomfort. It's inside of it. 8. My peace does not require permission. In a noisy world obsessed with validation, this is one of the most powerful declarations a person can make, because most people, without even realizing it, hand over the keys to their peace every single day. They let a stranger's opinion ruin their mood. They let a delayed message spiral into insecurity. They allow the chaos of others to dictate the climate within their own minds. But a Stoic does not beg for emotional stability from the outside world. A Stoic knows peace is not granted. It's claimed. You see, if your sense of calm depends on how others behave, you've already lost. You've made your well-being conditional on circumstances you cannot control. That's not serenity, that's slavery. Real peace is built internally, moment by moment, decision by decision. It's not a gift from others, it's a discipline within yourself. And when you understand that, something fundamental shifts. You stop reacting to everything. You stop chasing after people's approval. You stop waiting for life to calm down so you can finally breathe. Instead, you become the calm. Imagine walking into a room full of tension, voices raised, energy high, egos flaring, and not absorbing any of it. Not because you're cold, not because you're indifferent, but because your peace is rooted too deep to be shaken by surface winds. That's not arrogance, that's mastery. It's what happens when you build your internal life on solid stone, not shifting sand. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That's the secret. The sanctuary is always available, but only if you stop outsourcing your peace to people who never deserved that power to begin with. Your ex doesn't decide your self-worth. Your boss doesn't hold your emotional thermostat. The internet doesn't get to shake your focus. You are responsible for the atmosphere you carry, not them. And this truth can be uncomfortable, because it means no more blaming others for how you feel. No more pointing fingers at the world and saying, "You made me anxious," or "You ruined my day." It forces you to take full ownership of your emotional state, and that's a kind of responsibility many avoid. But it's also the beginning of liberation. The moment you stop needing permission to feel peaceful is the moment you step into true freedom. You don't need someone to text back to feel secure. You don't need the applause to feel worthy. You don't need everything to go right to remain steady. You need one thing: the decision to anchor yourself in what you can control. Your thoughts, your breath, your reactions. That's where peace lives. So when the day starts, and interruptions come, and people act unpredictably, and life throws its usual chaos at your feet, remember this: your peace is yours, not theirs, not contingent, not borrowed, yours. And if you protect it, nurture it, return to it in the small spaces between chaos, you'll find something rare: stillness that doesn't break, calm that doesn't require perfect conditions, presence that doesn't vanish at the first sign of stress. Say it and live it. My peace does not require permission. Then carry that truth with you, like quiet armor, into every room, every call, every moment. That's Stoicism in action, not loud, not dramatic, but unshakably firm where it matters most. 9. I will act with purpose, not drift with emotion. The difference between a reactive life and a meaningful one often lies in a single second, the second you pause. That breath before the outburst, the silence before the decision, the stillness before you say yes or no. That's where your power lives. But most people miss it. They rush, they react. They let emotion become the engine of their lives, and then wonder why they feel like passengers inside their own story. But Stoicism teaches something radically different. Don't be ruled by the wind. Be the one who chooses the sails. Emotions aren't the enemy. Let's be clear about that. They are signals, not shackles. You feel anger? That's information. You feel sadness? That's truth knocking on the door. But acting from those emotions without clarity, without purpose, is how wars begin, relationships end, and regret multiplies. The Stoic doesn't suppress the emotional weather inside. He observes it, he reads it, but he doesn't hand over the wheel. Acting with purpose is not about being robotic or cold. It's about being sovereign. When you have a mission, a clear sense of who you are and what you stand for, emotions become allies, not dictators. You use the fire of anger to fuel justice, not vengeance. You let fear become caution, not paralysis. You turn sorrow into depth, not drowning. But this only happens when your decisions are rooted in intention, not impulse. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly paused before making a decision? Not hesitated, paused, not avoided, reflected. That space is everything. Viktor Frankl said it beautifully. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That's the Stoic pause, and in today's hyper-reactive world, it's a rare superpower. Think of your life like a compass. If you let every emotion swing the needle, you'll spin in circles. But if you set your direction by values, honesty, discipline, courage, then even when emotions try to pull you off course, you know how to realign. You don't resist the storm. You learn how to sail through it with focus. And people will feel that. They'll sense that you are different. Not because you don't feel, but because you don't flinch. This mindset also frees you from emotional whiplash. When every comment, every inconvenience, every interruption used to hijack your state, you were drained. But now, you lead. You set the tone. You are no longer a leaf. You are the tree. And acting with purpose makes everything lighter. You don't waste time explaining yourself to everyone. You don't spiral from one emotion to the next. You stay rooted in your reason and let that be your guide. So tomorrow, when the tension rises, when the rush tempts you, when someone presses your buttons, pause, breathe, ask, what is the wise action here? Not what feels good, not what proves a point, what aligns with who I want to be. And let that answer shape what comes next. This is how you build a life of intention, one choice at a time, one breath at a time, one pause at a time. Say it, mean it, live it. I will act with purpose, not drift with emotion. 10. No opinion today will define me, not praise, not blame. It's tempting to anchor your worth in the opinions of others, to let a compliment inflate your confidence or a criticism shatter your peace. We grow up trained to seek approval from parents, from teachers, from peers. And without realizing it, we start to build an identity out of reflections that don't belong to us. A like becomes validation. A frown becomes rejection. A word becomes a verdict. But Stoicism offers a radical alternative. What others say may echo, but it doesn't define. The truth of who you are lives far deeper than public opinion. It lives in your actions, your principles, your integrity when no one is watching. There is a quiet liberation in understanding this, because the moment you stop being controlled by what others think, you begin to live, really live, not perform, not seek applause, but live rooted in your own clarity. You wake up knowing that today's praise can vanish tomorrow. That blame may come from misunderstanding, that both are outside your control, and therefore neither deserves control over you. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to others. It means you place your value where it belongs, in your own hands. Imagine walking through your day without adjusting your energy based on someone's tone, or letting your mood swing because of a stranger's opinion. That's not arrogance, that's freedom, and it's a freedom built not on resistance to feedback, but on filtering it through the lens of reason. The Stoics practiced this relentlessly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people would be rude, jealous, angry, and that none of it could disturb him unless he allowed it to. He understood that the source of suffering is not the insult, but the attachment to reputation. When we crave admiration, we become fragile. When we fear judgment, we become dishonest. But when we focus on living rightly, truly rightly, we become untouchable. This mindset also protects you from the seduction of praise, because flattery, though sweet, is just as dangerous as criticism. It makes you dependent. It builds a false self that rises only when others approve. And once you've built your identity on applause, silence becomes unbearable. The Stoic refuses to live for the crowd. He serves a higher audience, his conscience, his character, his reason. So how do you practice this? Begin by noticing when your emotions change based on someone else's reaction. Pause and ask, did I act with integrity? Was I true to my values? If yes, walk on. Let the world talk. If no, reflect, correct, but don't collapse. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be principled. This doesn't mean becoming immune to feedback. It means choosing your compass wisely. Use criticism as a mirror, not a sentence. Use praise as encouragement, not identity. Listen with openness, respond with wisdom, but never hand over your self-worth, because that is sacred ground. So today, repeat it not as a wish, but as a vow. No opinion today will define me, not praise, not blame. Say it until your confidence no longer wavers with the wind, until your soul becomes steady, not because the world is silent, but because your truth is louder. 11. I am not entitled to ease. I am here to grow. We often whisper to ourselves, silently, sometimes without even noticing, that life should be easier than this, that we deserve a break, a simpler path, a softer blow. But what if that belief is the root of our suffering? What if it's not the pain that breaks us, but the expectation that we shouldn't be feeling it at all? The Stoics flipped that idea on its head. They didn't see struggle as an interruption to life. They saw it as the very terrain on which life unfolds. And they knew growth never arrives dressed as comfort. It shows up disguised as difficulty. This affirmation, I am not entitled to ease, is not a rejection of rest or peace. It's a refusal to be surprised when life demands more of you than you think you can give. It's a mindset that says, I was not born to be cushioned, but carved. Each challenge, each trial, each uncomfortable stretch of effort is not a punishment. It's a chance, a proving ground, a place where resilience is sculpted, layer by layer, through resistance. When you accept this, something shifts. You stop negotiating with pain. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? You stop resenting the mountain and start becoming the climber. That doesn't mean it stops hurting, but it does mean the hurt no longer controls you, because the person who expects the path to be hard is never surprised when it is, only prepared. This doesn't glorify suffering. It redeems it. Because what breaks many people is not the weight of the burden, but the shock that they had to carry it in the first place. The Stoic carries it with quiet strength, not because he enjoys it, but because he understands it. He sees every strain as an invitation to become more than he was before. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That line isn't poetic comfort. It's brutal clarity, and it's the foundation of this mindset. You are here to grow, which means you are here to be stretched, challenged, even broken, Not permanently, but precisely enough to rebuild stronger. You may not control what happens today, but you control how you meet it. So meet it with readiness, with dignity, with the knowledge that you are not owed ease, and that's what makes your calm so powerful. It's chosen, not given. Say it again. I am not entitled to ease. I am here to grow. And feel the weight of that statement settle into your bones, not as a burden, but as a kind of sacred responsibility, the kind that turns ordinary days into training, the kind that transforms difficulty into depth. You are not fragile. You are not meant to be spared. You are meant to be sharpened. Let that truth carry you through the next hard moment, not as a victim, but as a student of adversity, learning the language of strength. 12. Whatever happens, I will handle it, calmly, wisely, completely. There's a moment in every day, sometimes small, sometimes heavy, when life throws something at you that you didn't expect. A sharp word, a setback, a silence that feels too loud, and in that moment, you're tempted to tense, to react, to let the panic in. But this final affirmation is not just a sentence, it's a shield. It reminds you of your deepest capacity, not to control the world, but to meet it with the full strength of your presence. Whatever happens. This is not said with arrogance, but with clarity. It doesn't promise that everything will be pleasant, easy, or fair. It simply declares that you are prepared, that your mind is not a leaf in the wind, that you are not defined by what happens, but by how you rise to meet it. And this mindset isn't built overnight. It's carved slowly, by choosing presence over panic, clarity over chaos, composure over collapse. I will handle it. That doesn't mean you have every solution. It doesn't mean you won't feel overwhelmed. It means you'll respond, not flinch. You'll think, not flee. And even when it's hard, even when you stumble, you'll come back to your center. Because that's what handling it really means. Not perfection, but poise. Not control, but courage. Calmly. Calmness doesn't mean numbness. It means groundedness. It means not letting your emotions hijack your judgment. It means slowing down enough to choose your response, instead of being pulled into someone else's storm. The Stoics practiced this relentlessly, not as a performance, but as a discipline, because in the quiet mind, wisdom speaks more clearly. Wisely. Wisdom is not knowing everything, it's knowing what matters. It's seeing past the surface reaction to the deeper truth. It's the ability to step back and ask, what does this situation really need from me? Strength, patience, action, silence? Wisdom means knowing that not everything needs fixing. Some things just need understanding. Completely. To handle something completely is to bring your full self to it. Not halfway, not distracted. It means facing the moment with your whole presence, owning your role, your response, your responsibility, even if it's unfair. Because when you do that, the outcome matters less. What matters is that you met life with your integrity intact. This affirmation is not just something you repeat in peace, it's something you test in pressure, and the more you practice it, the more it becomes a part of you. Until one day, someone will look at you and wonder how you stayed so calm, so clear, while the world around you trembled, and you'll know it wasn't magic, it was mindset. So tomorrow morning, or whenever the world shakes a little too hard, come back to this truth. Whatever happens, I will handle it, calmly, wisely, completely, not because life gets easier, but because you got stronger. Each morning, life gives you a silent offer, not a guarantee of ease, but an invitation to rise. Before the world knocks, before demands pile up, before you become everyone else's version of who you should be, you have a brief, sacred moment to choose who you are. That moment doesn't require noise, it doesn't need motivation, it just asks for alignment, a quiet return to what you truly value. These 12 affirmations weren't written to impress you. They exist to anchor you, to remind you that even in a chaotic world, you can remain calm. Even in uncertain times, you can choose clarity. And even in moments of pain, doubt, or silence, you are never powerless. You are always in charge of how you show up. The Stoic doesn't chase a perfect day. He builds a resilient mind. And that begins with the first words he speaks to himself. So tomorrow, don't just wake up, awaken. Don't just begin the day. Begin it with depth. Pick one affirmation. Let it guide your breath, your posture, your choices. Let it whisper through your actions more than your voice. And as the day unfolds, no matter what comes, you'll walk through it not as a victim of chance, but as a guardian of your mind. And if this episode helped anchor your mind today, share it with someone who needs strength more than sympathy. Subscribe, reflect, return. This journey isn't about perfection, it's about daily presence. I'll see you in the next one.